Every day, more news about rising prices are making the headlines, as the effects of inflation are becoming increasingly more evident to U.S. consumers. However, many of these reports are not exposing the true severity of this crisis, and that's happening because official data about the rate of inflation is still in single digits. But what Americans don't know is that government agencies have dramatically changed the way inflation is calculated over the past few years. In fact, a recent piece by Forbes disclosed that over the past 30 years, the government has changed the way it calculates inflation more than 20 times. Many economists say these changes are a convenient way to give favorably low results, even though there's no way to accurately estimate how much of that rate is being concealed, given the lack of transparency. The truth is that the rate of inflation directly affects many sectors of the financial system and the economy, so it's in the government's best interest to keep that figure as low as possible. And to achieve that, they readjusted the formula until they found one that provided the results they wanted. But even with the new readjusted formula, inflation rates have been on a steady rise, hitting one record high after the other. The latest reading of the Consumer Price Index, or CPI, which represents a basket that includes food, energy, groceries, housing costs, and sales across a wide range of goods, jumped 5% from a year earlier. Economists surveyed by Dow Jones had been predicting a 4.7% increase, and that was the biggest CPI increase since the 5.3% rate recorded in August 2008. And many of us, of course, still have fresh in our memories what happened in the months following August 2008. The United States faced a devastating financial crisis that pushed the economy into the worst recession since the Great Depression. At this point, we can only hope the same won't happen again. Another major concern is the fact that even though inflation readings are well above anything seen since the 2008-9 financial crisis, the Federal Reserve has been conveniently dismissive of the latest numbers. On the other hand, investors remain heavily focused on inflation, as it's been posing the biggest threat to the U.S. economy since the early 1980s. Considering the official numbers are not portraying the real extent of the problem, it's safe to say consumer prices are not just rising at a 5% rate right now. According to John Williams of Shadowstats.com, if inflation rates were calculated how they used to be back in 1990, the numbers would be well above 8%. And if the rate of inflation was measured the way that it was back in 1980, it would currently be sitting at approximately 13%. In face of such staggering numbers, it's understandable why government agencies are trying to cover up the real figures. A 5% inflation rate sounds a lot more palatable than 13%, doesn't it? But it doesn't matter how much they try to hide it, the effects of inflation can be observed everywhere, especially in food prices. Americans have been noticing a significant jump in prices at the grocery stores. As one CBS affiliate described in a recent article, more and more grocery shoppers are experiencing sticker shock every day as the price of food, especially meat, fruit, and vegetables, is going up dramatically. If prices were indeed rising at 5% annual rate, consumers wouldn't be feeling such painful impacts just yet. Unfortunately, the reality is much worse than it seems. Food's going out of sight, it really is. Prices are ridiculous, exclaimed one shopper named Donna Gallagher in an interview with CBS News. Another one, Ron Flucker, noted the fast increase in fruit prices. I saw some apples, they were $2.19 a pound. You get 2 apples for that. That's ridiculous, he said. The same is happening to meat prices. According to Jeff Cohen, a deli owner and meat wholesaler, the price of meat is out of control and the actual inflation rate for meat is much higher than what's being reported. They said on national news it's 10%, but that's not true. It's probably closer 20 or 30%, Cohen said. For Risa Komazawa, an associate professor of economics at Duquesne University, this is a clear sign that the economy is overheating, and as opposed to what policymakers have been persistently arguing, this is not a temporary blip. Inflation will keep on rising. Consumers will face even more challenges to keep up with the soaring costs. When you realize this might be a longer-term issue than what we had thought, it might be too late to combat this problem, Kumazawa explained. In other words, the more the Federal Reserve overlooks this issue, the bigger are the risks for this to evolve into a major national crisis. Another shopper named Abby Walter, also interviewed by CBS, said that since the beginning of the year, she's been noticing her grocery bill creeping up, and now she's spending about twice as much on groceries as she did a year ago. The Maryland resident typically spent about $75 a week on groceries, but her bill is currently averaging $150 or even more. Produce, eggs, meat, and bread all cost more than they used to, she said. That's causing her family to rethink their budget. It means that we can't buy a lot of the things that we want, stated Walter, a 29-year-old wildlife biologist. We probably won't be traveling as much. We probably won't buy clothes, even though we'll be going back to the office soon. Just like the Walters, millions of American families are experiencing the dollar and cents reality of higher inflation. A couple of years ago, an entire shopping cart of food would cost about $25. Today, if anyone manages to get a full cart of food for less than $200, that's a great achievement. It's getting harder and harder to take advantage of sales and make each dollar stretch as far as possible. These days, some of the sales prices are actually much more elevated than regular prices. That's occurring because some companies have been finding ways to raise prices without alarming consumers. The recent increase in global commodity prices is forcing many of these companies to pass along those higher costs to their customers. Food manufacturers and grocers are resorting to shrinkflation. Now, that's a practice in which they package food in smaller containers while charging the same amount. And in that way, they kind of manage shoppers' expectations. Others have been attempting to use language that will not spark widespread alarm. A recent Bloomberg report described that if you ask Pampers maker Procter & Gamble, they'll say they're not raising prices, they are taking pricing. Rival Unilever, known for Dove soap and Axe body spray, says it's been very active with pricing. The prize for creativity, so far at least, has been home improvement retailer Lowe's, whose finance chief told investors Wednesday it was elevating our pricing ecosystem, revealed the report. General Mills executives are also using absurd euphemisms to justify the latest price hikes. The new jargon includes arcane phrases like strategic revenue management and holistic margin management, which is not a language you'd ever find on the back of a box of Lucky Charms. The company uses those terms so often, in fact, that its CEO now refers to them by the acronyms SRM and HMM, revealed Bloomberg. And the truth is that with corn prices soaring and extreme weather threatening to cause widespread crop failures, consumers should brace for much higher cereal prices in the coming weeks and months. All of those indirect terms for rising prices illustrate the rhetorical backflips companies perform not to expose what they're actually doing, responding to skyrocketing inflation on global markets and protecting their profit margins by making their products increasingly more expensive. At this point, We have monumental piles of dollars chasing very few goods and services, therefore prices have nowhere else to go but up. Our leaders should be focusing on taking emergency measures to prevent an inflationary collapse, but instead, they've been adopting policies that seem to make things even worse. The new administration is proposing another $2 trillion spending plan, which will significantly expand our money supply and deteriorate our purchasing power even more. In an attempt to minimize the damage of yet another spending bill, a group of U.S. senators is working on a so-called compromise deal that would only provide $1.2 trillion in new infrastructure spending. Needless to say, that won't make much of a difference when we consider the trillions upon trillions of dollars that we have already borrowed and spent during this crisis. It's simply unsustainable to keep doing this. It feels like complete and utter insanity to be this irresponsible with the economy of the world's wealthiest superpower. But our politicians and our policymakers remain unbothered about the potential risks, and they will continue to borrow and they will continue to spend massive mountains of money that we do not have, while the Federal Reserve is going to keep pumping mountains of cash into the financial system. So, more painful inflation is coming for us, and the standard of living of most Americans will keep spiraling down. Thank you for watching. If you found this video informative, we invite you to check out Lost Prophecies of the Future of America, the latest book of the economic collapse writer Michael Snyder. Please don't forget to share your thoughts in the comments section down below. We'd love to read them. And please keep tuned for the next video.